hook you up with those resources in other counties throughout the region. But I think also, make sure, I mean, like any other sales initiatives, sales prospecting initiative, keep on the lookout for events like this one today. Part of exploiting the opportunity is going to those events, meeting people, learning about the industry, learning about the needs of the industry, figuring out how you as a company can take your existing product or service and help fill that need.
All right, next question for Rex. Normally we look at supply chain needs as material and tangible. How do you see the industry jobs in that same light?
That is one place where the gas industry is very much different than most other industries, manufacturing or coal mining or certain things like that we've seen. If I look at our mining area, I probably have an 80-20% split, that 80% is spent on capital items and actual products, and maybe 20% on actual outside services and contracts. If you go to a pure manufacturing type industry, probably 95% of it is spent on actually the raw materials and the labor to put it together, and maybe 5% is spent on extra services. The gas and oil industry is much different that way, and it's really a flip-flop, that it's probably 80 to 90% is all on services, and probably the 10 to 20% is on capital items and on materials that are actually used in the process, whether it's pipeline casing, cementing, or something of that nature. And that's something that, as a company, we even look at much differently, to the point where we actually have a larger group of buyers and strategic sourcing analysts on the service side than we do on the actual materials side. So we do try to address that way, that we try to make sure that we have enough buyers and enough people that can strategically look at what's going on, so that they can really go back and apply the principles of procurement and the principles of quality, and making sure that we address our core values. Our first three core values of the company that's very, very important to us. Number one is safety, number two is compliance, number three is continuous improvement. Those are the first three things that every company needs to make their priority as they work with us, and if they want to work with us. Safety is obvious. We want everybody that comes to work to go home from work. Compliance, if anybody heard the earlier session, it was talked about, anything environmental, everything else. That is extremely important to us, not only from a legislation point of view, but the one thing that we're a little different than other gas companies is, this is our backyard. This is where we grew up. This is where we have people that work for us. They are our neighbors. Their kids play in the local ball teams and everything else. So we want to make sure that we leave the environment in a safe and healthy way for our kids to grow up. And our last one is continuous improvement. And the continuous improvement is, we want somebody to always build that better mousetrap, whether it's a process, whether it's a piece of material, or anything out there, that the way that we can help our industry and the way that we can help our company succeed is to come up with a better idea constantly. So we really support the service side in the gas industry different than what we would in the material side, but we are very much 100% behind it, and really dedicate our time and resources to making sure that it is done properly.
Okay, this next question is a bit on the long side, so if you need reminded of the different. Yeah, well, you don't have to do that, but how important is a business plan for a small business owner who is thinking about looking toward coal and gas supply chain opportunities? Where can the small business owner go to find business plan resources, and is it expensive to write a business plan?
Yeah, it is not. The professor in me wants to say, oh, you have to have a business plan. But I'm actually a practitioner, and probably 50% of the people who start businesses start without a plan. I mean, they've scribbled a few numbers on the back of an envelope when they start, and somehow that causes them a lot of problems. We see a lot of those people later, says, I wish I would have come and seen you. But the principal thing that drives them in our door quite often is the need for money. And that's when they pay a lot more attention. So those people definitely need a business plan just to make the bank happy, to be able to access the money to start and pursue their idea. So oftentimes people identify a problem or an opportunity and want to capitalize on that, and we help with that. We act as an ally, a sounding board, and a friend in the process of moving that thing forward. We do work with innovation a lot, and we'd like to ask you some questions about that because we have innovative people around here. We'll get some of them some access. We can pursue some of those ideas. But the business plan is taking people's information, refining it a little bit, pouring it into the forms that the funders need to see it. And in the process, people get quite an education about operating their business. So it's very important to succeed, not just to get the money, but to succeed. And the kinds of ideas that we see, we kind of see feeding it. We don't generally deal with the large drillers and things like that. We get people from around here who want to take advantage of the opportunity. So let's say they want to finance a water truck. It's a pretty big investment. You have to put together what the capital costs are going to be and what your revenues are likely to be. And our observation has been this industry is kind of a relationship industry, and the reliability and promptness is the most critical thing to them, and price does not, cost doesn't drive it. It's like getting the service when I need it. So we work with a lot of hotshot services, water testing, major vehicle repair, weld and other structural testing, lease advising, food delivery, and the product innovation piece. So when you're trying to do any of those things, the business plan becomes kind of central.
Does it become expensive to write a business plan in that situation?
No, and our services are free, and we guarantee your money back. But no, it's not expensive. It's expensive in terms of you have to invest some of your energy and time. Most people don't like to plan. You know, it makes them uncomfortable. So certain things they come up with all kinds of ideas, but to make them, force them to plan a little bit, we help with that. There's no expense to speak of.
All right, question for Jim. We look at the 10-county region of southwestern Pennsylvania. What's your expectation in regard to the economic impact and rewards that could be associated with the Marcellus Shale activity, and when will we see the hit?
Well, it's been hitting, and it tends to come in waves from what we've seen as we've researched how this industry has grown in the region. I think we're currently seeing kind of a short-term slowdown just because the prices are depressed, but the prices will go up again, and regions like Indiana County will start experiencing an accelerated growth pattern. I think it's important to note that since 2004, employment related to natural gas exploration, production, distribution in this region has more than doubled in size to over 10,000, including a 40% increase in 2011 alone. The number of establishments has also nearly doubled during that time. So we're seeing this growth, we're seeing it throughout the region. And that's just the people who are actually doing the work. And there's all the spin-off benefits, because for each of those 10,000 jobs, there's another 1 to 1.5 jobs supporting those. But I think you haven't seen that come in equal distribution throughout the region. Right now, Greene and Washington County is where a lot of the activity is concentrated, but you're starting to see that growth now in counties such as Indiana County. So, what you will see, as we've seen in other areas, is first thing, the exploration and production companies come, they start drilling wells. They're followed very closely by the support services, the Halliburtons, the Schlumbergers, the Superior Well Services. And when they come to a community, they tend to start small. They want to test the market. They will establish an interim presence. Maybe a gravel lot with a modular office on it, and then as they build their businesses, go to a bigger lot, a more substantial building. And then as they become established, what do we then see is the supply chain companies move in? The companies making, providing products and services. So manufacturers of components, business service firms. I think that's one of the big surprises to me is the amount of growth we've seen in law firms to support Marcellus Shale. And it's not all happening in Pittsburgh. We see those firms expanding throughout the region because out here is where the land is, where the negotiations need to take place. I think it's interesting to compare some of our internal tracking. In 2008, there were 8 Marcellus Shale related expansions that we had identified in the region. 3 of those were administrative offices for exploration and production companies, and 5 were industrial facilities for those support services. Last year, we identified 56 of the Marcellus-related expansions throughout the region. Again, exploration and production, there was still continued to be a lot of activity, 11 expansions. Support services, there were 26, but also then you saw a half dozen manufacturers expand, adding new facilities, new employment to support the Marcellus Shale industry. And also, again, I think what was really surprised us, there were 13 expansions in business services, so engineering firms, law firms, security firms, testing and surveying firms. So what you will see in the coming years is kind of the fingers go out throughout the economy and touching many more parts of it. And for business owners, I think that's something that you really want to be aware of and look at where you can fit.
Last question for you, Rex, for prepared questions. Can you give us a scenario in terms of what the industry needs? What are those mom and pop opportunities? And does the industry provide education or incentives to help the small business owner learn the ropes?
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 questions there. We'll address them. First of all, mom pop type things. I look at that more as local companies versus what a mom pop is. There is mom pop companies out there. What Tony's brought up is the water truck driver. There's times that some of them that we may contract with, they may have 2 trucks, they may have 20, they may have 5. And the concept here is not that we're wanting to pay more for one versus another, and the price is important. What's really important in that is the total cost of ownership to us. If you have a water truck and you